Welcome back to another video, guys. Today we're finally going to be setting up the 60-gallon tank. Whoa, no. It's probably been about a year since I built this stand. The stand that it was originally on was starting to bow. I was going to set it up in the middle of the room and the tank was going to be viewable from both sides. But the tank has really weird dimensions. So it's a 4-foot tank. It's pretty tall. I think it's like 28 inches, 26 or 28 inches tall, and it's like 12 inches deep, or 12 inches front to back. With the place I was going to put it being in the middle of the room, it was going to be viewable from both sides, and that was going to make it really hard to escape the tank to give it, you know, some depth being so shallow. And since I got a 125 to put there instead, this is where this tank's going to go. I'm definitely not going to do this for every tank that I build, but for this tank, as well as the shrimp tank that I built a few videos back, I'm going to make this as cheap as possible for someone to recreate. And I'm not using really expensive rocks or wood. The tank is just a cheap tank. It's an Aquarium tank or a Marine Land, one of the two. I built my own stand, probably for less than $50, $40 or $50 at absolute most. The filter that I've got is a used filter that I got with the 125, so that was basically free. The substrate that I'm using is a sand from a hardware store, as well as some river pebbles, also from a hardware store. Lowe's, Home Depot, they carry these things. This is like paver sand to go on the ground between pavers, and then river pebbles, you use these for landscaping and stuff, but you definitely have to wash this stuff off. The sand and the rocks need to be rinsed because there is a lot of dust on there, and it's going to turn your water into Nesquik if you don't rinse these things. So for the larger rocks, I might need more, but I went around outside and picked up some rocks.
How dare you!
I tried to find ones that seem to match in some way, in color, shape, and with these river stones, I'm going to go through and pick out ones that don't really match. If you think of a river, all the rocks from one particular place, say in a river from somewhere, is going to have mostly the same kind of rocks, I would think. And so if you pick rocks that have similar characteristics, similar colors, I think everything is going to match really well. We're trying to make an ecosystem, or at least what looks like a natural ecosystem. You could basically get all of this outside, even these river pebbles you could find outside. The only reason I chose to buy them is because it's an easy example of something you can do for very cheap. This whole bag, which I can probably make 3 or 4 different tanks out of, cost $5. And the bags of sand, I think, were also $4 or $5 a piece. This is like 1.5 bags of sand, so you can have all the substrate and all the rocks you need basically for $10. The only other thing I really spent money on is some root tabs, which we're going to be breaking up, turning into powder, and putting on the very bottom. We bought a heater. This is probably one of my favorite heaters, specifically the 300 watt. If you buy these on Amazon, it's really weird. They're like $4 or $5 cheaper. For a third of the power, you get a 100 watt heater for like $45, $50. And this one's like 56 bucks, and it's a 300 watt heater. We've got one in the back. You can't quite see it. There's one in the back of the 90 gallon. And then I also have one under the saltwater tank in the sump. You can't quite see it, but you can see the LED light, which I really enjoy seeing the exact temperature the tank is down to 1/2 of a degree. They also visually change color. So if the tank is too warm, the light turns red and it displays the temperature. If the tank is colder than the temperature that the heater set to, it turns blue. It has a little code come up, says low flow if the filter's not getting enough water moving over it so that it can heat the tank properly. It will also let you know when the expected life of the heater has run out, so you know when it's about time to change the heater, because heaters do have an infinite life, heaters do have a finite life, and they will eventually stop working. And if they stop working on, your fish are going to die. If they stop working off, you might be able to catch it in time, but you know, you really shouldn't run heaters forever. And so it's really nice, these heaters basically tell you when it's time to replace them. I know that you could think of that like a planned obsolescence thing, but either way, they're still an expendable part unless you're using something like a titanium heater and a temperature probe. Heaters that do it all, measure the water temperature and heat, they're eventually going to stop working. So these are really good heaters. Link in description. And then the last thing that I bought, last 2 things. Replacement filter pads for the canister filter that I have. I bought new filter pads because the filter was from another person's tank and it was really gross. So we got new filter pads. The last thing that I bought are these media bags, which we're going to use. You can put filter media in these, put them in your sump, put them in your canister filter if you want to put activated carbon. I got the coarse size, and these have plastic zippers, so they will not rust in your aquarium. And we're actually going to use these. I wanted to get some bigger ones. This is the largest that I could find, but it's a pack of 10. So we're actually going to take aquasoil, fill these with aquasoil, and lay them on the bottom of the tank in certain spots where I know I'm going to have plants. And then we can cover the bottom in some crushed up root tabs and then put our sand down. The root tabs will help for the few plants that are out in the foreground on the bottom, but the main plants will use the nutrients in the aqua soil, which they'll find when their roots make it to these, and their roots can get inside these bags. Also, if say we don't keep this tank for very long, or when it's just time to tear this tank down, it's really easy to remove the sand, take the bags out, and we have our aqua soil still in the bags, which we can reuse. If not, it's just gonna be all mixed in, and depending on what kind of fish we put in here, they could start to disturb the substrate. And if they disturb the substrate with the aqua soil in these bags, it's pretty much just as simple as pushing the sand back. If we didn't have the aqua soil in these bags, the aqua soil is just gonna get everywhere and it's gonna be a mess. The only thing I haven't showed you so far is the driftwood. But now let's get on with this. Let's build this fish tank. I think the first thing we've got to do is get the driftwood in here and some of the rocks and figure out exactly where we're gonna do the hardscape, so we know where to put the substrate, where we're gonna, so we wanna know where to put the aqua soil. If I'm gonna have all the plants on one side, there's no point in putting the aqua soil on the other side, because that's really just gonna promote more algae if there's more nutrients in the tank. So let's lock the aquascape down and then we'll focus on the substrate. These are kind of big pieces, but the other piece of wood I was going to use, it was not hard enough. Like it sticks out of the tank. Basically, I found some wood and it was either rotten to the point where it was too soft to use, or it had dry rot before it got in the water, and you just have to try to find wood that's nice and solid. The other piece of wood might have lasted a couple months, but I want to find something that, you know, could be good for a couple years at least. And this wood's pretty hard. That's what she said. This is not a fresh piece of wood. You always need to make sure the wood is 100% dry. If it's fresh, it's still going to have the oils from the tree in it, which are toxic to the fish. That's really the only kind of contaminant that you need to worry about unless the wood is soaked in some kind of oil. If the wood is dry all the way through, it's safe to be in your fish tank. Don't have to boil it. Please don't boil your wood. It just makes it rot faster. There are essentially no pests that are gonna be on the wood. They're gonna make it into your aquarium if the wood is dry. Let the wood dry out, pressure wash it or scrub it with water, and stick it in your fish tank.
Maybe I will, gosh!
It looks a little bulky, but this definitely makes an impact. What I usually try to do is, if you have a lot more wood in your tank, then you're gonna use a lot less rocks. If you have very few pieces of wood, you're gonna use a lot more rocks, and I don't have that many rocks. So the wood is definitely gonna be the focal point. I think we should put it off to one side like this. We'll use a couple rocks to prop it up, maybe even some of just the river pebbles. If I didn't have to cut this off, I wouldn't. I think I'm gonna try to just move this more to the center, and I can just have this come out the top just from a hole in the back of the aquarium top. I'm thinking pretty close to right there. I'm trying to make this not touch the front glass. That's as much room as I have to work with. Any wood that's touching the glass is gonna be really hard to clean around that piece. So if you wanna keep your glass clean, you should make sure the wood is not touched. You can get a razor blade or a cleaner behind it. I'm gonna put some aqua soil bags in the back corner, probably right in the middle here. Good. I'm gonna rinse these bags off real quick because they're plastic and they might have manufacturing oils on those. You never can be too safe. All right, washed and ready for aqua soil. A lot of dust comes off this stuff. That's why I have a bucket underneath of it. That's pretty good. I don't think I need any more. I actually got one left. I think we'll save it. But now I'm gonna take some of these root tabs and I'm gonna crush them up and we're gonna sprinkle them around the bottom of the tank. It smells like fertilizer. We'll do 6. Well, these are hard. Well, that actually kind of worked. Okay, that's pretty good. And now we'll just sprinkle this all in the areas where there is no aqua soil. And so like all of this is gonna be for grass, if we wanna put some types of grass in here, glossostigma, Monte Carlo, whatever kind of, if we wanna put a carpeting plant in here, this is going to really help that lock into the substrate and really get its roots down to the bottom. That looks good to me. I wanna give some height to the scape in the back. So I think I'm gonna add some of the river pebbles just to sort of build that area up, and it will also help keep the sand from making its way down.
Walking fast.
gonna pick out some rocks that I definitely don't want in here. Ones that might look a little suspicious, ones that just stand out, they're gonna look too eye-catching, and then I'm also gonna pull out some ones that I do want to see, and we're gonna mix these in with the larger rocks, so we can try to blend in the large rocks to the sand a little bit. I'm actually out of pea gravel, and I usually like to use that to blend in some of the aquascaping. So I've picked out these rocks to use on more of the surface. We'll get our wood back in here now. As long as we're happy with that, it's a little close up here. I'm gonna break that off a little bit because that's just too close. That's pretty good. I think now I just need to work in the rest of the rocks. That, I think, is pretty close to exactly the way I want it. So now I'm going to put some sand in to lock all that in place. Probably should have put the sand on first, but I wanted to make sure I could move everything around underneath before I put the sand in. So now we're going to put the sand in, feed it into all those little cracks and crevices, put a little bit more sand at the top. So we're going to start with the sand back there so that if we don't end up having enough, we don't have to scoop it from the front and put it in the back and disturb the nutrients we've got going on at the bottom. This is so exciting, guys. Are you excited? It'd be a lot easier to do this if the sand wasn't wet, but we had to rinse it, so. I think we need like a good amount more of the river pebbles in here, or the river stones, this size ones. So I'm gonna wash some more of those off so we can put more in here. Because I only washed a little bit because I didn't know how much I needed, but we need more. I think it definitely looks a little barren. We need to have some out here and a lot more around the central area. So let me go do that. This looks really good so far. I'm gonna go grab some super glue and we're gonna lock this wood down, attach it to the rocks. Since this wood is so big,
super big,
I think we do need to take little pieces of tissue paper, whatever you have, and use that to wedge in between the pieces of wood and rock, and then saturate the pieces with super glue, and that'll help create a larger contact surface for the wood to stick. Got our super glue, some little tweezers to help push the stuff into the little crevices, and we've got some paper towel. So it's actually the next day. I was thinking about the aquarium and I thought it really needed some pea gravel. Even though I was out of pea gravel, I went ahead and stopped at the hardware store and picked up, it wasn't actually pea gravel, but it was, I forget what the bag said, it was like river, I think it said, it's something different than pea gravel. And a lot of the stuff at the hardware store is completely covered in dust, so it's really hard to actually tell what it looks like. It really looks like this stuff is a lot brighter. The rocks are sort of whites, really light tans, even some colors. And so I'm not sure if that's gonna look right. The stones over time will sort of darken with algae and diatoms and stuff like that. So we might try to make this work, but most of the pea gravel is darker. I liked the size and I liked some of the colors and how the rocks were just a little bit nicer with this bag. It sort of seems like I should have got the regular pea gravel. This is still only like $5 to $7. I think this is probably around $5. So it's still not the worst. If I don't use it for this, I'm gonna use it for this. What am I talking about? Just test it out in this little side section. So I'll probably end up using this just because I'm kind of too lazy to go and try to find something else that might work. But then I'm gonna go and pick out some of the ones that are like basically just white. And this is just to sort of help blend in the larger rocks to the smaller rocks, sort of give it the impression that stones have been breaking apart over time. So like these super white ones, I'm just gonna pull these white ones out. A few more on this side. Okay, I think that looks pretty solid. Might be time for plants. I really want to do a grass, and we've got some grasses down here. We have Eleocharis acularis mini. I think this is a mystery one. And then we have Eleocharis parvula. I might have to go look this up. One of these is in the shrimp tank, and it stays slightly smaller. So whichever the one is in the shrimp tank over there, I'm gonna do the opposite one in here so that it can stay a little bit larger, and I can compare the two species to see how they grow. I just checked my notes. So the Eleocharis parvula is the one that grows slightly taller. That is actually the one that has more in it. Let's take this guy. All right, so we're gonna start with the grass. I'm gonna wet everything down again, and then I'm gonna start planting the grass in little clumps. This is pretty subtle. It's not a huge grass, so it's gonna be something that isn't overly eye-catching, but I think it definitely gives this a natural look, and then even more so as it grows in over time. We can add more later, but I think this is definitely a good start, and then to work into the mid-ground plants, which we are gonna get right now. So for now, the main mid-ground plant I'm gonna be working with is my Alternanthera renacii mini, and this is gonna be a really nice, smaller, red plant that's gonna complement some of the plants in the back. So let's get some of these guys in there. I'm gonna try to keep in mind some places to leave open for some new plants that we can add later. Yeah. That's good, that's good. So I'm trying to leave this side a little more open so that it slopes in. Go grab a couple more plants. These are coming out of the angelfish tank, getting attacked. It's a good start to work with. We have Alternanthera renacii. That is probably plenty. So make sure everything's staying wet. All right, let's see what else we have. We've got the Ludwigia palustris. Yes. So I might try to put this to the right and put some more, the Ludwigia arcuata, put some more of that in the middle, like separating these two, because these have similar leaves. I have this much. Now this actually is the same plant as the Ludwigia arcuata on the left side. This was just grown immersed, so it has slightly different leaf shape. The air was a little drier, obviously, than being underwater, and when it's a little drier, it just has more of a broad-shaped leaf. So it'll be interesting to see how this transforms into looking like the plant on the left. This plant should turn red as it grows, so eventually the ends of these leaves will be all nice red and orange. The last one I'm gonna put in there is Ludwigia palustris, and that's gonna go on the corner, right in the back. All right, so now I'm going to do a little water change on the 90 gallon, and we're gonna put that water into this 60 gallon. I'm not gonna fill it all the way up because I'm not 100% confident that the wood won't float. One reason, this does not look like that is secure. It looks like it came off of the wood. The other places seem to look like they are still attached, but like on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm like a 4 unconfident that this thing won't float. So I think what I'm gonna do is fill it up pretty high, like maybe to like a little bit less than half. And that gives the wood a chance to become waterlogged, at least a little bit. I can at least gauge whether or not the wood's gonna float. Whoa, no, no, no. Shoot. Shoot. I guess that's as far as I'm gonna fill it right now. Well, I think it's stuck now. Dare I go any higher? I kinda wanna go past the point where it's gonna like absorb more water. That could have been worse, I guess. We have to cover the top of the tank so that plants don't dry out. Okay, day 3. All right, back at it for day 3. So I filled up the tank a little bit more last night. I don't think I've got enough rocks in there. Even if I tried to drain the tank and re-superglue everything, I don't think the superglue would hold, given that there's only really 2 somewhat decent sized rocks in there, and they're like kind of on the front side of the logs. So it would probably end up like twisting the superglue off again like it did the first time. So I think what I'm gonna do is just stack as many rocks as I can on top of the driftwood, and we'll get the tank full so that the wood can absorb water and become not buoyant anymore. So if we just get these things sunk, which could take, you know, a couple weeks, maybe a month for the water to penetrate completely and get all the air out. So we need to get the heater on and the filters on and everything like that, the cycle going, so that the plants can start to grow, so we can get some small fish in there, so that we can get bigger fish in there that might try to disturb the plants. So basically everything has to start going. You got to see a little bit of the plants before I started stacking stuff on top of the wood. Hopefully it's not too much of an eyesore to have this stuff stacked on top of the wood until it doesn't float anymore. The biggest eyesore is going to be if the wood completely comes up and destroys the aquascape. We're going to try to avoid that happening. So like I've already done, I've got some baggies full of rocks. I'm going to stack some more rocks on top of that. We're gonna fill the tank up the rest of the way. The extra tubing that I ordered for the canister filter should be here today. So then basically we have everything for the filter to be set up. And then if I use some cycle media from one of my other tanks, we could potentially go this weekend and get some small fish for this. This is what you gotta deal with if you're gonna make a natural aquascape. Wood floats. That's why they call it driftwood, because it drifts along. Eventually it sinks, but it just takes time. So we're gonna give it the time that it needs. What I'm really worried about is getting all of this stuff balanced so that it doesn't fall towards the front glass, because that would obviously not be a good thing. That's pretty solid. I did forget I was going to add water from the 90 gallon. Yes, it was low. I will fix that as well. Looking good. Oh, it wants to float. Oh no, she finna come up. Shoot, I need a rock. Hey, thumbs up for the smoky quartz crystal. All right, got it filled. The only thing I'm really waiting on now is the parts for the filter, and that's really it. I mean, once we get that filter in here, I'll probably take an old sponge filter or something, wring it out, and let all of that bacteria seed this tank, and then we should be good for this weekend, getting some fish if we want to. These plants are gonna look so cool in here. Really excited about this one. I've not had this one in an actual planted tank before, so really excited to see how that looks when it's full grown. It's definitely hard to see with all the stuff stacked on top of it, but once those are gone, you can see the plants behind, plus when they get taller, this tank's gonna look really awesome. I forgot to mention the lights that I've hung up. This is really just a piece of wood that I've painted black and attached some wires to with eye hooks attached to the ceiling, just like I did with the saltwater tank with the LED lights over there. And so for these, I just used my LED floodlights that I used on my breeding rack build. I think they're 50, maybe 50 or 100 watt LED lights. These are at full power right now because I don't have a dimmer. But yeah, it's just pretty much suspended up here. I'm really excited about this one. I was kind of limited on the wood selection that I had, but I think these two pieces together look pretty good. So once these plants fill in, we get some fish in here. I definitely think we should put the Pictus cat in here because that was sort of the main point of this tank. And then like I said, I want to get some fish to swim around at the top because that would be really cool. So anyway, I guess I will pick this back up when the packages arrive to finish the filter. Okay, we've finally got our filter pads and our replacement hose, since the old hose was literally like this long for some reason, and the old filters were dirty. Stretch her out. All right, gotta prime the filter. I think it is a priming button. So you're going to press, and it should suck. It doesn't sound very sucky. Oh, it's because it's still locked.
You blithering idiot!
Aha! It's sucking. Why this wouldn't just flow down here? I should just make a siphon. I gotta do this to fill up the whole thing. Aha! This filter should be rated for a bigger tank than this. It says up to 100 gallons. We shall see if that is true. Hey! I've got to press the button on the UV sterilizer and see if that does anything. No, it doesn't. I would have imagined that light would come on if it worked. So the bulb does not work. Okay, that's fine. We didn't need it anyway. So after a few days, we went to the fish store over the weekend and picked up some fish. A couple of the fish we bought over the weekend, I can't show you, but they are in this tank, and I'll be doing a video on that very shortly. The fish that we got for this tank were a fish that I haven't seen before. This is called a Pacific Blue Eye Pseudomugil signifier. Definitely never seen them before, and what caught my attention in the store was the way that they were schooling together. And I know that when you're in the store and you see the fish doing a specific thing in a small tank and there's a bunch of fish, they're gonna act differently in the fish store than they'll act in the tank, your tank, when they're fully comfortable and stuff. So don't always make your decision on what fish to get based on how they're swimming in the store. A lot of fish will school even though they're not a schooling fish. These are pretty much a schooling fish, and even though there was a lot more at the fish store, they're still doing a really good job of shoaling in this tank now, even after multiple days and them being, you know, pretty much accustomed to this new tank. I did get 9. I'll probably go back and get some more because these fish look really neat in larger groups. I think 8 is like the recommended minimum for these fish because they do like larger groups. Now the only thing is these fish were $10 a piece on sale. If I got less than 3, they were more than $10 a piece. So at $10 a piece for these fish, we're gonna split that up into 2 different transactions because that is a lot of money to spend on little tiny fish. But the way that they swim and like the males will show off for the females, they're really an interesting fish. They do have these really cool blue eyes that pop. Plus their fins have these nice white streaks, and the colorful pectoral fins and anal fins, they were kind of dull for the first few days, but they're definitely getting more color as they're settling in. There were a few other fish at the store that I noticed that I want to pick up as well the next time we go back. One of the fish that I didn't find there that I know I want in this tank is a bichir. They did have ornate bichirs. They have some small bichirs. I want to get a small one so we can watch it grow in the channel. The specific kind that I'm looking for is a Delhaize. I think that's how you pronounce it. I think the coloring is, it's similar to an ornate bichir, but the coloring is just really interesting. The black and white contrast, where they get more of like a stripe pattern. And so if I find one of those in a store, I'll definitely pick it up. I have seen some on liveaquaria.com, and it's getting into the season where it's a little sketchy to buy fish online because it's cold out. If I want to get a bichir for this tank, it's going to be one of those. And if I can't find one in a store and I can't order one to the fish store, then we might try ordering some fish online. But I'm probably not going to buy just one fish online, so we'll have to find some other cool fish to buy on Live Aquaria, which is sometimes a little hard to do since they're out of most fish almost all the time. So that's unfortunate. And to get free shipping, you have to spend a certain amount of money. And if all the fish I want are out of stock, it's a little hard to buy in Live Aquaria. And just like with the bichir, I'm trying to get some different fish, like with the Pacific blue eyes. I don't think you guys have seen those very often, at least I haven't. So I'm trying to do things on this YouTube channel that are different and things that you guys don't see that often. I could have put 3 discus in here, called it a day. You've seen that tank before. I could have put a bunch of neon tetras in here. That tank's been done before. So I'm trying to do things that are different, things that are interesting, and things that are not very common, so you guys have more interesting things to watch. Because I don't want to be like every other YouTuber out there. So we're trying to create a unique experience here, guys. So I guess that's gonna do it for this video, guys. The next one, we're gonna be adding the Pictus cat, maybe not the, okay. In the near future, we're gonna be adding the Pictus cat to this tank, but I want to wait until the grass is a bit more settled so he doesn't rip up all the grass. We'll be getting some more fish for this tank that I saw at the fish store. Definitely know what I want. And also in the next video, I'll show you guys what's in this tank. So if you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss the updates, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.